All right, y'all. So I'm going to do this video. I actually have been meaning to do this video for a while, and I kind of did not know where to start or what have you, but I figure now I feel like I'm okay to do it. And basically I'm going to be discussing coping with death for me personally. It's a little heavy-ish, I guess, on the topic. But I realized that, for instance, when people pass that I know, I don't cry. So I have yet to experience actually crying from the news of someone passing. And I'm not sure if it's a processing thing, but literally from what I can remember, even if I'm just thinking of like, recent stuff, I haven't cried, and I always told myself that it was because, like nobody's close to me has died, whereas I would feel it like an immediate loss. But last year, my grandma passed and my father also passed. And in both instances, I didn't cry, A couple years before that, my brother passed. He lived in Guyana, so granted, we weren't really close. We didn't have that kind of relationship. I spoke to him on the phone, like that, but we didn't have like a personal, physical relationship. I didn't cry. But I usually cry after the fact. So, and even like I'm thinking now, even when I was younger, it was the same thing. Like I didn't cry right away. And I'm not really sure why. I can't really say that. I can't say it's because I'm not sad. Like I don't know, because I've cried for less, you know what I mean? So yeah, I don't know. But anyway, so when my grandma passed, I didn't cry until I was at the funeral, at the burial, and they lowered the casket. So like I saw the body, I was like, okay, you know that the person has passed, is not there anymore. But that didn't make me cry. She looked peaceful. She looked, so I was okay. And I'm tearing up now. See, this is what I'm saying. It's so weird. But I was fine until they lowered her body into the ground. And it's so crazy because I personally try to avoid funerals and things like that. Like if it's not someone like really close or what have you, then personally I would try not to go. Just because I'm not a fan of it. It's too much sadness. It's just too much for me. The energy is really heavy. So I really try to avoid that if I can. But like memorials and stuff like that, I'll go. But yeah. So I feel like as an adult, that's probably the first funeral I've gone to. In life, I can probably count less than 5 that I've attended by choice. But like I said, I was okay. And then once they lowered the casket into the ground, like I lost it. And I feel like it kind of made it real for me. Cause then it was like, oh my God, like this is it. You know what I mean? Like, that that's it. But when you see that, it's so final. And it's like, oh my God, this is it. So I feel like that, like I lost it. And I surprised myself because I was fine. Like I was doing really well. I was recording, I was chilling, you know, they were beating drums and stuff like that. And I was, you know, and then that was it. That was rap for me. And I would say, you know, that was a relationship that I loved. Like, we went there for Christmas, we went there for Thanksgiving. You know, we popped up, we sent her flowers every year, birthdays, all this good stuff. My mom always did just because pop-ups on her. So I'm sure she was grateful for that relationship that she had with her mom. But it was a lot after the fact. I'll say that much. Now, with my father passing, I didn't cry, and I was wondering why. Like, it didn't affect me at all. I guess you can say we were kind of estranged. My father made a point to call once a month, and literally he just called once a month like clockwork, and he's like, oh, you know, this is my monthly call type thing. But there was never like a bond there in, you know, my adult life. He met my 2 older kids just one time. He did not meet the youngest one. And it's so crazy because when my grandma passed, he called to give condolences, and I said to myself, I'm like, okay, like, once we finish with this quarantine stuff, you know, I gotta do better before he dies. That was always my statement. Like, okay, before he dies, you know, I gotta get the kids over there, da 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 da. And before I knew it, he died. So I felt weird, you know, like, it's kind of like I couldn't really be sad because there was nothing to miss, you know, like, I hadn't seen him in years. I spoke to him, but a lot of times when I spoke to him, he couldn't remember if he told me something or he told my sister. And he'd be like, oh, I told you XYZ. And I'm like, no, you didn't. And he's like, yes, I did. And my sister's like, oh, no, that was me. He told me that. So I don't know if he just didn't remember, what have you, but we were getting there. So I actually missed some stuff because he never told me. And I just didn't know. But when he passed, I kind of started thinking back as to what happened, because I stopped going over to his house by choice in high school. Prior to that, like, when we were younger, we would spend the whole summer with him. Like, we spend 2 months in the summer with him, and we have a lot of great memories as children with him in the summers, and then we'd spend weekends or weeks or what have you. When he moved, we'd go to church with him. Every first Sunday, he'd come pick us up to go to church. So we have decent memories. I only have pictures of us together as a child. I don't have any adult pictures with my father. And when I think about it, I realized that I stopped going over there because of a situation that happened at his house with his wife and his wife's family. I'm not going to get into that because that's what this video is about. But when I was kind of thinking about it, and I completely blocked it out. You know what I mean? Like, I stopped going over there and everything was just gone. Like, it took a lot of thinking for me to even remember that that happened. And once I remembered, everything came back like, oh shit. But like, my grandma passed, I cried at the funeral. My father passed, there was no real communication from his wife. I had no clue what was really going on. And so I can't even tell you what happened now. I don't know if he was cremated. I have no idea. I'm assuming he was cremated. I got the little, little memorial card in the mail. I have that. But I don't think I had any real closure with that. And it wasn't until this year, early this year, mind you, he passed last year. 2020. And it wasn't until early this year, 2021, maybe about a year after, I was trying to figure out this video. So when I want to make a video, I kind of think to myself like what I'm going to say or what it's going to be about if I have a thought in mind. And in thinking about making this video, I started crying. Like, it was like 2 o'clock in the morning and I was just a mess. And again, it caught me off guard because I didn't expect it, because I felt like, you know, he died a year ago, what have you. I was over it, but I realized that, you know, in me being sad of his passing, it wasn't really me being sad because he died. It was more so, I don't want to call it regret, but it's almost like what could have been, if that makes sense. So, okay, hold on. So, like, I've had friends who also lost their fathers recently, you know, COVID and all that good stuff. So, but it's like, it's so different, like, when you see people post about their, you know, losing their father and this, that, and the third. And it's like, those relationships I didn't have with my father, you know. So me figuring out how I felt about him passing was mixed in with me forgiving myself for not having a better relationship with him, because it's almost like it could have been better effort on both parts, you know what I mean? And for me, I was living my life and that was it. And I also felt like his interest was limited, you know, like, oh, are you still doing this? Like, yeah, I'm in school. Like, oh, you graduate? Yeah, I graduated. It was more like oh, well, this person's kid is doing this. Like, he was only interested if you were accomplishing things. And for me, it was, you know, not, it just wasn't there. But I dealt with it. You know, I cried and I got over myself, and that was it. And I really feel like a lot more people need to, I guess, forgive themselves. Because I feel like a lot of times when people pass, people have a habit of going, oh, I should have did this, oh, we should have did that, oh, this, that, and the third. And there's nothing you can do. You know, it's over. It doesn't make sense to torture yourself with what should have been or what could have been or what might have been. It's just what it was. And all you can do is appreciate what you had at whatever capacity it was at. And that's it. So that's my discussion. Oh my God. That was rough. I mean, not really rough, but you know, I'm crying and shit. This ain't cute, but it's human, it's emotional. But this is what I'm saying. This is probably the second time I'm crying talking about it or thinking about it or whatever. And again, it's not, I hate that this thing twists. It's not so much that, you know, you'll miss it. It's more so like, okay. And the crazy part is that, like, when my father passed, I actually was a little bit relieved, because I felt like the fact that he didn't know my kids made it easier, because my kids wouldn't have to deal with the loss. You know what I mean? Like, the one time he met my 2 older kids, I didn't even take any pictures because it was really awkward. It was really weird. But I appreciated the experience. You know, I was just in the moment, and I really wasn't in a let's take a picture kind of thing. It was just like, wow, I'm seeing this man after years, you know? And when he passed, you know, my son was so confused. He's like, who's that? I was like, oh, that's my father. And he's like, oh, because he was trying to figure out why my sister was so upset because she was crying. And I explained to him that, you know, my father died. And he's like, oh, that is sad. But a part of me was very happy that they did not know him well enough to feel the loss of him, because my son took my grandma passing very, like, you know, he still feels it, I feel like, especially if we go over there and things like that. And I'm sure that's not the healthiest way to think about it, but for me, I was just like, okay, well, that's one less thing that my kids have to experience that's negative. You know, there's enough of the BS they have to deal with, but that's one less thing. But yeah, that's my story on me coping with the losses and how I feel about it. I mean, my throat is not sounding good, but yeah, I just feel like I had to really, as far as my father's concerned, I had to really give myself permission to not dwell on what I didn't do or what I could have done or what didn't happen, what could have happened, and just kind of grieve for my feelings and whatever I felt like I missed or didn't have or could have had, and not thought about anything else. And I'm okay with it. I gave myself closure, and that's what I needed to kind of get over it. But again, it took a year, you know what I mean? So sometimes, you know, as you see, I'm still crying about it. So obviously it's not like it's gone, even though I feel like I've given myself closure. Obviously I still have emotions behind it, but I feel like I needed to really sit down with my thoughts and process everything for myself, since I didn't have a funeral, I didn't have a ceremony, I didn't have anything that said this is it, this is the end. So I had to kind of do that for myself, and I did. And I'm at peace with how I feel about it. You know, I don't hold anything against myself or anybody else. It's just life. And, you know, from that, we learn to try to live in the moment more and to try to be more of what we want in the world, if that makes sense to y'all. Like, don't wait for somebody else to be that. You become that, and hopefully it'll spread to everybody else.